All right. Let me see. Dealing with technical issues as normal. Okay, here we go. I jinxed myself, Rob, because we were talking about technical issues, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, I don't see sound coming across the video outlet. I only saw it across the audio, but I think we're going now. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm doing great. And yourself, Troy?
Good, good. I feel like I'm way too loud.
It's not too bad on my end.
Okay. My headphones may be up just a bit. It just you just blew out the left eardrum.
Sorry.
But that's all right.
How's
Anyways, good to see
how's
you.
my audio? Is my mic
Yeah,
mic too loud?
you're good, and you're looking sharp with that Kermode Outdoor Development Group hat on Kermode Outdoors. Check them out. One of our sponsors, in addition to Red Rum Sport Fishing down at Cabo San Lucas, BooHammer.com, Gear for Grunts, and Listen 95 Company. All the people that we wish paid us more money to help pay the bills, but they are sponsors, and we do appreciate them, and they're good friends too. Especially that
Right.
Kermode and Red Rum guy, good buddy Toby, who is unfortunately not with us again tonight.
Right.
But hopefully he is. I will look to okay, looking at the chat, looks like they do got sound now. Thank you so much for our fan base. No, of course my mom always there, holding strong. No, Ma, it wasn't you. It was me. What happens, I jinxed myself. Rob and our guest. But I think we're good to go now. How's the weather
Is it,
down there, Rob?
weather here is not too bad today. It's about 86. I have been watching, the radar. I look at the weather a lot, living where I live, and I noticed that Toby avoided a hurricane down his way. He kind of went off and went towards Hawaii rather
Ah,
than coming inland. So,
I didn't even know you had one
um,
coming to him. A good buddy of mine's down there right now for a wedding, and they're not
uh,
hitting hurricanes. Do they call them hurricanes in that side of the continent?
I think I think it's a typhoon
I thought
on
it was
that side. Is
typhoon
what
in
it's
the
called.
Pacific. I thought. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You're the producer. You always correct me on that stuff. You would tell me for sure. But yeah. So awesome. Well, hey, we have a great guest for you guys tonight. We've been promising great guests. We've been trying to work on them, and all of you know our good friend John Wagner, who's on the show many times. Appearances coming up actually. John knows everybody. That dude. There's no one that is more um is Rob may be our unpaid producer. I think John could be our paid. I don't know what do you call him, guest finder. I don't know what they are, but John's just like he's like
Well, he's so traveled.
he
He's a
is.
very knowledgeable guy, very traveled guy. Um, and a likable guy. I
And
mean,
well,
I
the
don't.
the funny thing is the number of times we've had him on here, and people have learned about aspects of what
Right.
he's really done would blow some people. And we'll keep that for
Right.
him to talk about. Um, without any further ado, I definitely want to bring on tonight's guest. He is again comes to us as a from John. I want to bring on Mr. Lindsay. Is it Co? Is that how you say it? Is that I didn't ask
It
you.
is. It's co like COE or
Yep.
bread dough with a D instead of a K.
All right. So
Whatever works.
Co like Center of Excellence. COE. I like that. We'll go with that. Well, hey Lindsay, thank you so much. You are the CEO of Trident 11. You are a former Navy SEAL. I'm not going to say ex because I know what we kind of say. It's former. You have been involved with a number of things through your career, not just the SEALs, but all kind of things. And we are really excited to have you on the show tonight. Thanks for giving us some of your time from that great looking office you're in.
Thank you, Troy, and thank you, Rob. I'm humbled to be here. Quick note on John, and I also like the format that you didn't seed me with any questions, and we'll just see where this is going to go. So very cool. I have listened to a couple of your shows. Awesome. And I'm really grateful to be here. And as I mentioned, when I use the word humbled, I really mean it. John Wagner, I met him in June of 2004 in Baghdad when I was serving as personal security and as a flag aide for a one-star admiral. He was the director of strategic communications and public affairs there. And John was on his staff. I know I'm not answering a question, but just since we're talking about John, 2 years later, John and I co-found Griffin Airlines and started with a single ATR 72 twin-engine turboprop with just a couple flights from Kuwait into Baghdad on the commercial side. and then grew that to daily flights from Kuwait into Baghdad, and then Kuwait, Dubai, and Dubai into Kandahar, Afghanistan, and Bagram. Again, daily flights. I sold in 2012, about the same time John did, and we had a great run. It was awesome. John's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. So, were you a pilot? Who was flying? Because I don't think he's a pilot, and I found out you're involved. I helped found it. Like,
So as a co-founder, I was not a pilot. We did have a couple of pilots that were part of the co-founding team. However, we basically leased crews and aircraft from Spain, and then tied them to a aviation certificate out of South Africa, because we couldn't have a U.S. owned or U.S. flagged airline fly into Baghdad. So we matched those two together, and away we went.
wow, that's yeah, you guys put some chicken wire duct tape together and put a awesome company that grew into jets, right? You guys were flying big stuff there, and
Right.
all over theater.
We ended up with DC-9s and MD-83s, and I was a minority shareholder, but the joke with my partners was that I owned business class. So thank you for laughing.
There we go. Yeah.
Actually, it was interesting when and this is kudos to Mr. Jamie Dimon, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan. I was at JP Morgan at the time as a reservist, and then was mobilized. And Jamie Dimon took care of all of his employees that were deployed while they were mobilized. And when I was mobilized as a reservist, I want to say we only had maybe 482 employees from JP Morgan mobilized. But one of the amazing things that Mr. Dimon did was he took care of our salaries while we were gone. So while at JP Morgan, I was in a large position there. Fascinating, awesome professional experience. But he really, I'm glad we have the opportunity to bring up certain people that have helped us in our professional and personal lives. Jamie Dimon is one of those guys from JP Morgan.
Yeah, that is awesome. There were not a lot of companies doing that. The company I worked for at the time, Unisys, did the same thing. So almost
Awesome.
an 18-month deployment. One of the few guys on my team that went to war and made money. Regular Army money came in, the regular salary came in. It was definitely a blessing. I mean, a lot of companies will make up the difference, right? They'll do something. Company goes all in, like covers your salary the whole time. That is pretty phenomenal.
It was amazing, and any opportunity I have like this one, I make sure I tell that story.
No, that's awesome.
I'm grateful.
That's awesome. Yeah. So obviously, I mentioned you're CEO of TRIDENT 11. You are former Navy SEAL. Can you give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background, kind of who you are, like what you've done in the military at whatever depth of detail you want, and kind of where you've ended up today? And
yeah, absolutely. If you'll allow, Troy, I do want to bring up John Wagner one more time. I had the great fortune to work with him in D.C. while he was at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and then he was also at Health and Human Services. And I believe he left as an assistant commissioner with the FDA. He just had some monster jobs back there when I was an appointee as well, working as chief of staff of to the Undersecretary of the Navy, 2020 and the beginning of 2021. Interestingly enough, I find it interesting that listeners or viewers may not, but interestingly enough to me, rather, I served the Undersecretary of the Navy, as I mentioned, but he was also the same one-star admiral that I served in Baghdad in 2004, a gentleman by the name of Admiral Greg Slavonic. And it was just a great run to serve him. For the number of years I was able to, he's a great leader, and we still stay in touch quite a bit. Very good man.
Yeah, it's a small military world, right? I would just call them small Army stories. I would serve with someone on active duty and then go somewhere in the National Guard, or even run into them in theater. Passy. Hey, what are you doing here? Yeah, no doubt that same kind of mindset runs around all the service.
It was also great to serve with great Americans like Ambassador KJ Braithwaite. He too was an admiral in the Navy. Then he was Senate confirmed as U.S. ambassador to Norway. So by the time I got to the Pentagon, he was the Secretary of the Navy. So being able to get the band back together with him too was just awesome. I say that lightly, but talk about people that are serving our country for the right reasons. SecNav, Ambassador Braithwaite and Admiral Slavonic, two great Americans.
Awesome.
How do you get the ambassador job for Norway? Now that's the job I want.
I think you should have Ambassador KJ Braithwaite as a guest, and he'll tell you all about it.
That's I'm sure you can help us make that happen. That would be awesome. We have not. We've had a lot on here. We've had Secretary of Defenses. We've had Congress people, budding Congress people. We have first.
Interesting. Well, when you said that Secretary Rumsfeld has been on, and also like I served in the teams, but guys like Craig Sawyer, those are some of our heroes. So I don't ever, other than just to continue to prop him up where he belongs. I don't deserve to be in the same sentences with some of those guys. So I'm humbled to be here.
No, you do, and that's why I want you to kind of tell about your career, and I think listeners.
Well, I'll hit Trident 11 real fast, and then basically we do two main things. One is Trident 11 is the subcontractor to an awesome prime, and we basically get up in the morning. We have to do two things. We have to do things that matter, and that sounds kind of, hey, that sounds great, nice brochure, next. And we also have to work with great people. I think I'm probably maybe not older than both you guys put together, but I'm definitely the oldest one on here. So in my why, I don't have a lot of room for not working with, super high performing and integrous professionals. So I get the great opportunity to work as a subcontractor to the prime, this prime, prime firm out here in Northbrook, Illinois, called Bancroft Architects and Engineers. And so you're like, okay, great. What's that matters? Well, Bancroft Architects and Engineers, they are a very senior design and engineering firm, and they also have in their family of companies general contracting, medical equipment, medical design, real estate, etc. So what has really put Bancroft Architects and Engineers on the map has been doing architecture and engineering for the VA. So as a subcontractor working in the space of project management, I get to work on behalf of our veterans, and I get to see the whites of the eyes of the veterans that we serve as we do either renovations or new builds that help the VA medical system under the Department of Veterans Affairs. And specifically, I'm working in two VAs in California, two in Arizona, and two in Florida. So not only do I get to get my hands dirty in project management in architecture and engineering, but I also get to spend time with the clients, and those clients are our nation's heroes. I too am a VA patient, but again, I don't hold a candle to the World War II and Korea and Vietnam veterans that I get to see every day. The second part of what Trident 11 does is in the private sector, and we have a team specifically around this, but we help independent physicians stay independent. Now, if anyone's interested, they can find me on LinkedIn, Lindsay Kough, K-O-U-G-H. Lindsay's an A-Y, not an E-Y. So if anyone wants the data behind any of this stuff, 2 years ago at the end of 2020, we just crossed the line of less than 50% of practicing physicians are independent. By July of last year, there was a study that came out, and again, I can provide all this, that now we're at less than 30% of practicing physicians are independent. So Trident 11 goes out and finds innovative processes, services, and the like to help keep independent physicians, that 30% left, independent. Most of them are now owned by, I don't know if you've seen the article even this morning that came out that CVS is, and Walgreens are both coming out with specific emphases in primary care clinics. Personally, and also those on my team and people more educated than I am, we don't think having a bunch of non-physician types run healthcare for our country. There's several situations where primary care physicians are not allowed to prescribe either certain screenings or MRIs or whatnot based on who they work for. And those are the kinds of things that we're trying to combat as well. So just do things that matter, work with great people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Trident 11 is pretty busy. You kind of got two main avenues to focus on.
Yes,
So,
sir.
obviously, Trident coming from the badge. Let's talk about that. How'd you get into SEAL? Why'd you go to the SEALs? How'd you get in there? What was your interest? Did you have a Navy? Are you a Navy like? What was the inspiration?
That's awesome. Okay. Was born in Oklahoma to two awesome parents. And my dad was actually enlisted in the Navy. He went to dental tech school. And then shortly after, he went to A school because he was a pretty decent basketball player. They gave him, in addition to his Navy uniform, they gave him a pair of sweats, and they traveled all over the country playing basketball against junior colleges and other colleges and universities as kind of a recruiting effort. So that was kind of the imprint of the Navy. My brother and I grew up primarily in Southern California, in Orange County, mostly in Costa Mesa, but a little bit of time in Newport Beach. So when we were looking at colleges, my dad planted it in our ears to look at the United States Naval Academy. Well, I had a little bit more fun in high school than my brother did, so I didn't even put it on the list because I knew I couldn't get in. My brother went in straight from high school, and his name is Lawrence, one of my heroes. I mean, he's even though he's my younger brother, he's like one of the top two guys, on the planet, right next to Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, et cetera. And my brother's right up there. He's a great man. So he got in right out of high school, ended up graduating as an aerospace engineer. But so I went to college first. I went to a small Jesuit college. Both my brother and I graduated from an all-boys Catholic high school. So I went to a Catholic college. We grew up Catholic. And I just thought the college was an extension of the high school. So I was just like, yeah, hey, I'll just go there. But then between my freshman and sophomore year, I knew I wanted to be a pilot. So back then we had the yellow pages. You guys probably don't remember those, but
we're not that young. We're not that young.
We're not that young.
I wish.
Thank you for laughing and covering for me. So about March or April of my freshman year at Regis College, now Regis University in Denver, I banged the phones out of the yellow pages because I want to just figure out, hey, I want to fly. I'd never been in a plane, et cetera, et cetera. So there's only one service that would, I called the Coast Guard, I called everybody. There was only one service that would guarantee flight school, when I got through their program, and it was the Marine Corps. So all of a sudden, I'm like, well, I'm going to go Marine Corps, and I'm going to be a pilot. So I ended up going to, between my freshman and sophomore year at Regis College, I ended up going to the platoon leaders course at OCS in Quantico, Virginia. In that program, you did 2 6-week summers, and then you were commissioned as a second lieutenant, and then went to the basic school immediately after that. Well, excuse me, at PLC junior course in Quantico, 6 weeks, it was during my brother's plebe summer at the Naval Academy. And I was like, you know what? I've got basically just enough money in my pocket to take a bus. I was flying out of National to get back to Denver, to get back to college. And I was just like, I got to see my brother. I mean, one of my best friends. So just, if you've ever been to the Naval Academy, have you guys, gentlemen, ever been there?
Yep.
I've been there.
So like, I had no aspirations. I didn't know what it was. My dad brought it up probably just to be nice to me, but he was really hoping my brother would go, and because he knew he could get in probably. But just like the majesty of walking through that gate and then seeing the buildings and the brick dribbling walk, with the flowers on either side, and then walking up to Bancroft Hall where there are 4,400 midshipmen living under the same roof. One of the largest buildings in the United States. it definitely set a tone, and walking up the steps and opening up, what seemed like a 30-foot, bronze door, may not even be that tall, but it was like, okay, my brother's doing some pretty cool stuff here. So I chopped up to the main office, and by the way, my head was still shaved from being a Marine, basically, recruit. I had my USMC, white lettered T-shirt on, a green T-shirt on, and I was just very proudly like, I'm Cadet Lindsay Kough, and I'd like to see my brother Midshipmen Lawrence Kough. And I really had, a lot to pronounce there, and they just looked at me like, we don't care who you are, and if you really want to see your brother, it's not like we don't have visiting time right now. It's not parents' weekend yet. They're not allowed to have visitors. I'm like, well, I'm jumping on this plane and blah, blah, blah. Well, finally, they just had me sit in the corner. And then like 2.5 hours later, I got to see my brother. And I don't know what part of this story I'm allowed to tell. You're probably never going to see this, but I was just like, now my brother won state in 100 breaststroke in high school. So I swam, but he was a swimmer. So he lost like 9 or 10 pounds. And on my brother's build, like that was a lot for him. So he basically came down and he's all sweaty. He's thin. I'm like, man, what's going on? Are you okay? He was basically, I used other words, but he basically said, I don't like it here. Why don't you apply? Let's do this together. And so I applied and they said no. And then I applied again the next year and then they said yes. In very large part, having come from Southern California, my brother and I both played water polo. I did, because of my brother, I got some extra time with, he's now a collegiate, the Collegiate Water Polo Association Hall of Fame coach, a gentleman by the name of Coach Mike Schofield. And because of Mike and a couple other conversations he had, somehow I was able to get in. So that's a long story, but like getting to the academy had a lot to do with being a frogman. So I started my second freshman year. I'm 20. You could not have turned 22 by the time, on our induction day on July 6th, and I was 21, turned 22 in March. And so I went through my first freshman year, played water polo with my brother, was able to stay in, got a little bit of shenanigans, but nothing where like I was at risk of getting kicked out or anything. But after that first year, and oh, by the way, and we're going to come back to this, it's also where I met this gentleman by the name of Paul Jenkins, who also happens to be the owner of Bancroft Architects and Engineers. Paul was our captain on the water polo team when I was a freshman, and he was a senior, and my brother was a junior. So we'll talk a little bit more about Paul Jenkins later, but getting through this very short story, I can tell already. So get through my first freshman year, and the Naval Academy has this awesome, they call it professional development, and you go out to the fleet and you learn more about what it would be like to be, in the Navy as a midshipman. So we went to, I was on the LPH-2, which was an amphibious assault ship. It's not around anymore, but so out of the 6 weeks we were supposed to be in Norfolk, the ship was down like 4 of them. So since we were kind of in this rank that not a lot of people, wanted to mess with, this Navy chief was just like, hey, just call us every day and let us know you're all right. So like 8 of us, jammed into a hotel room with like 2 double beds. And, we just drew straws for who got the beds for like 2 weeks in Virginia Beach. And it was there that I met the first SEAL I had ever met. And his name was, still is, he's still around. We still are in communication, but his name is Kevin Banker. And he had heard, he was friends with some other people we met down there, blah, 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 blah. The short version is once we got together, he was like, hey, do you want to work out? So even though they were late nights in Virginia Beach with like 7 other dudes that went to the Naval Academy, I'd get up every morning and work out with this gentleman. And, the stories that he had about what he was doing for a living in the Navy. And by the way, he was one of those guys with the long hair and couldn't talk about, which command he was working for and all that. But I had never laughed so hard. I had never worked out so hard other than a couple of water polo practices up until that point. And I was just like, I just got out of this I did this Marine Corps platoon leaders course, but I want to hang out with these guys.
Did you?
So
So up
that's what
until
planted the
real
seed.
quick, up to that point, did you know what you were going to want to do in the Navy, or were you just like in the Naval Academy and whatever? Had you had already identified some
I was
jobs?
like, hey, the Marine Corps took a bet on me, so I'm gonna be a Marine aviator. I'm just, the commissioning accession program just changed from OCS, and I'll be a
Right.
Marine, and I'll fly at whatever they let me.
So you were planning to become a
after
Marine,
graduation.
a Marine officer, a Marine.
Yes, sir. Until I met a frogman
Yeah.
who had the best stories I've ever heard in my life, in terms of what you get to do for a living. And I always thought flying was cool, but that's what set the stage. And then got back from that summer, so now I'm a sophomore. And then I go, hey, this is what I want to do. I announced it to myself. I didn't tell anybody else. I don't even think I told my parents or my brother. But then I looked at the selection, and there were only 4 SEAL slots out of the Naval Academy when I was a freshman. And so that was the only data that we had. And all 4 of those slots went in the top 50 of our class, of a Naval Academy class of 1,000 plus. And I already knew I wasn't going to end up in the top 50. I mean, that was something I already knew, from the onset. And there was no way, by the way, I was going to get there. So did a little more research, and some of the mentors that are SEALs there were like, you seem okay. They're not going to. There's no way they can select you, that early. So they're like, yeah. What a lot of guys do is they go surface first, get their SWO pin, and then they go to buds. But you have to do a great job as a SWO and the like. So I just had resigned myself that I was going to be a surface warfare officer. They even said go minesweepers because they're wooden. It's not a nuke, so it doesn't take very long to qualify. So in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to be a frogman, and I knew I was probably going to have to go surface, which, by the way, my order of merit and my class rank would have allowed me to do anyway. It may have been my only choice anyway at the time. But so then sophomore year goes, and they select 7. It was just like, oh, wow, okay, this is a good trend. It still doesn't impact me, but I like where this is going. And then when I was a junior, for the seniors, they selected 12. And then as a senior, for the regular timing of service selection, they had 12. But then after we got back from Christmas, after I had already, like I said, resigned myself to, and by the way, the surface Navy's awesome, right? I mean, the whole Navy's built on the surface Navy. I'm not discrediting the surface Navy. I knew I was going to be a surface warfare officer. And then all of a sudden they said, hey, special operations is growing. We have 20 billets this year. Everyone has to retest if they want one of those 8 slots. So the selection was like 60% grade still, 20% interview, and 20% physical test. Aced the physical test and the interview. Grades held me down. I think I brought that up before. But I ended up getting the second to the last slot. So out of 20 slots, I got number 19. And then, literally got on my knees and prayed in gratefulness and thankfulness. Like, first of all, how do I get to get to Annapolis? And then, how do I get a frogman billet? So, interestingly enough, too, 4 guys on the water polo team, we were all in the same class, which was great. Lived with and hung out with some very dear friends of mine, and then did my 5 years in the teams. And that's the short version.
Yeah. So 5 years. So you went in. You got pinned in
89, exactly, right?
89, and you left active duty in 93.
Right.
Was that
So go ahead.
So I mean, obviously you went through a lot. You covered just a small percent of what you went through. Challenging, pushed yourself. But you only did. I'm just curious. I mean, long time. I'm just. Was it not what you thought it was, or were there other opportunities that presented themselves that you said to punch out of active?
Yeah, it was. I was very selfish. Looking back, when you're this old, you get to look back at your life and go, "Hey, what did I do well? What did I not do so well?" And for me, a couple of things happened. One, I was at SEAL Team 3. We deployed to the Philippines, and like at the end of our 6-month deployment, and we were all sold that the work that we were doing was important, and it was. There were some things that we had to be prepared to do. Panama went down right before we deployed, and we went into isolation, and we were the next platoon to go. And like much like yourselves, when you sign up to go do something, like you don't want to be left behind. So,
Right.
and it's just timing, etc. It's the luck of the draw in so many different ways. But we deployed to the Western Pacific as a special operations platoon, and basically got back at the end of December, like during Desert Storm, and then during Desert Shield, we came back, and then Desert Storm kicked off, like within a couple of weeks of us coming home. And a couple of things are going through my mind. When we got back to the Strand, we call it, back to the West Coast, SEAL team area, like it was a ghost town. Like everyone was gone,
Right.
except for like a handful of us, and we're like, "Oh man, I think we're missing this one."
Everyone else is in the sandbox or somewhere in that area. Yeah.
It wasn't exactly the case, but it sure felt like I was one of like 10 people left on the Strand while everyone else was doing what we all trained to do.
Right.
And
right.
so then someone said, "Well, hey, check out the Navy parachute team." And so I ended up being the team commander of the Navy parachute team, the Leapfrogs, which was an awesome job. But it was, I feel totally guilty, jumping into air shows and offshore, boat races and my homecoming game. And as we all know, Desert Storm was pretty short. So here I am on the jump team, and the war's done, and I'm traveling around the country, which was another great job. Excuse me, on behalf of the Naval Special Warfare community, the SEAL team, SWCC, Special Warfare Combatant Craftmen, but also Navy recruiting. So it was a great deal, but like it was during a war. So I have like this like what am I doing kind of thing. So then the war's done. I got an opportunity to study Japanese at the Defense Language Institute, and at the end of that deal, there were a couple of choices that were given to me, but because I wasn't coming from an operational platoon, I kind of stabbed myself in the side a little bit by not staying in the team area for that next pointy end of the spear position. So when I didn't get what I wanted from DLI, I did my commitment, sent my resignation letter, and then went into the reserves. So looking back, it's just like, yeah, if you were like, I mean, I can be pretty self-deprecating, but it wasn't a cool move looking back.
Yeah, what just caught me was obviously buds and going through the SEAL courses and all that stuff is super gut check. We all stats of people that actually great and make it through. You put up with a lot of abuse. Anything else? Prize. But I kind of get it too, being in I opportunity to deploy stuff, but I've had guys that I've worked with and people I know that, again, in the infantry and the Army, that's all you do. That's all you train for. Never to get put in a game. Always only go to practice if you would and be on the can be. It's pretty tough, especially when you have that time in Desert Storm. When you have 500,000, or I'm sorry, 1,000,000 troops deployed. Seems like the service got gutted. To send people over there and then not be one of the draw the wrong straw.
I want to go back to your story real quick, because when you said you ran into this SEAL, this is the 80s. This is mid-late 80s, and I'm picturing the Oakley blades, the gelled hair, which is you see in the movies, right? That's what, when you talk about SEALs, you talk about good hair, right? And this being the 80s, I'm picturing these Oakley blades with the mirrors and.
Well, I'll tell you, I did see some of that. I wasn't one of those guys, although I think my hair's.
You got pretty good hair for you're looking pretty. My hair's looking pretty good, much better than mine.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah,
much better than mine.
Rob, again, not knowing we were going to talk about these images that you portrayed, and I'm kidding. I think there's some parts of our community that could take some hits, but Kevin Banker, he was one of those quiet professionals. Like, he didn't say where he was, and it wasn't until much later where I figured out, hey, the only guys with long hair, we're part of this other team over here. And I had the good fortune to spend almost every day for like 3.5 weeks with him. And he put me through the paces, which was another guy that put us through the paces was one of our mentors at the Naval Academy. We don't hear much about him. He obviously is older than me, but a gentleman by the name of Frank Scully. He was at one of those teams as well. So these were just true silent professional, never talked about themselves. Everything was for the good of the order, and then they tested you. And this is in both scenarios way before Buds.
Well, back in that day, I mean, honestly, all of them were, and all of them being, SF SEALs and all that, were quite perfect. That's just like you say. I mean,
Thank you, Troy.
I mean, there has been a point, and maybe it was Charlie Sheen's fault, maybe it was, but there came a point where it was about hair and book deals, and that's kind of unfortunately become the kind of the inner service butt of the joke, right? When it comes, and it's still to this day in my circles about book deals and hair. But back then, everyone had their head down. Nobody was looking. Everyone was just doing what they were asked of them. And as you know, whether it was bid type missions with foreign, overseas, working with insurgent forces, developing forces, which is what the typical mission was, and was the SEAL mission.
Right.
They were just, it wasn't door kicking, it wasn't what we've seen over the last 20 years. It kind of wasn't super sexy or cool as far as but it was super critical for the stabilization. Really, both forces.
Agreed. But I will say, the last time I wore a uniform in the teams was in 2006, and plenty of door kicking going on. Not me personally, but then it wasn't until 2020 as chief of staff to the Undersecretary of the Navy, where we went back to the teams where, and I'm not just trying to defend our community. I mean, 99.9% of the community is still the quiet professional.
Yeah.
I mean, now there's always going to be an outlier here and there, and good on them. I don't have an opinion on all that, but the work that needs to be done on behalf of national security and protecting our country, both foreign and domestic, is being done by quiet professionals. And they're in the SEAL teams, they're in the Army, they're in the Air Force, Special Operations Command, MARSOC, et cetera. So I wasn't surprised by any stretch, but it was great to see it. And not only that, but the level of professionalism and capability, really, with where the teams are now compared to where they were when I was in active duty, is it's a whole different world.
And not only do they train each other and hone their sharpness for each other, but they've done it person who a lot with our domestic law enforcement, bring a lot of those lessons. State and local police agencies, SWAT teams, stuff like that. I mean, we all know, right? Combat, in a terrible thing it is, it does help innovate things and through the urgency, save lives, help take as quick as possible. It generates a lot of creativity, and part of that is kicking the door and killing every room. Kind of a lot of lessons come down. Help local law enforcement, even fire departments, firefighters, any kind of emergency.
Absolutely.
EMTs, there's stuff EMTs have packed in every ambulance right now. That quick clot end or whatever. No, I'm with you 100%. You and you talked about your last time 2020. You have been, I guess it's safe to say, in and out of from the time you left. Whether it be been pulled in and out, continue to.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And you know, again, a humble opportunity, and it's been a great run. It really has.
Now, I did notice in your bio that we talked about Griffin earlier. Were you in Kandahar working with Griffin in 20?
I left. The bio says 2009, 2010. It was towards the end of 2009 and then the beginning of 2010.
Okay, I just missed you. That's when I flew Griffin into Canada.
Well, thank you for flying. And had I known you, I would have definitely put you in what I always considered my part of the airline, and that was business class.
Oh yeah, right up there with the softer leather seats, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, where everyone was dressed the same in 511s and Oakleys. We all looked the same. Everyone in there looked like we just like we're a military unit who just got issued the same uniform.
When in the very beginning, when we didn't, we started, and I'm not going to give you the whole history, but we were looking for investors and spent a couple of days in a conference room talking to JP Morgan, the investment bank and several middle market banks. And everyone came back with the same thing. And that was one, none of you have actually run an airline. Two, you don't have any planes. Three, you don't have landing rights. And, there were another 20 things, but those were,
those are pretty big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So we said, all right, well, no one's going to give us money. So let's all leverage our homes, which, by the way, is not sometimes a good idea. Constrain a relationship.
That can be a little risky. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, let's just get something in the air. So our first flight into Baghdad, we had no passengers other than, owners. And then I can't remember. I don't think I was on the first flight, but I took vacation from JP Morgan. Got my Brooks Brothers suit on and my bow tie. I had my, my reserve, I think 05 ID, so I could get through the gates, right, in Baghdad with a tie, with a bow tie on, and basically just said, hey, rotors are turning. We can get you into Kuwait City in 35 minutes if you guys want to jump on. So we literally had our first paying customers, having them, we couldn't do anything for free, so we had to swipe their credit card after they landed. Right. But so those first few passengers, I had the good fortune to be on the plane with them.
I got to ask, knowing you and knowing John, I mean, how did this, when you think about, don't have landing, don't have plane pilots, airline, whose idea was it? What bar napkin got it down? What was the feeling? Like, hey, this war's just going on. How about we start a civilian airline and fly through combat? Start flying Southwest.
Well, the easy part for me was that it wasn't my idea. John brought it to me with a group that had already put some ideas together. So I can't say it was my idea at all. But what I can do is say that I helped design the financing for us to get it done.
You must have had a good plan because you're a smart dude, and they sold you on it. You didn't come back with.
Well, maybe it's because I missed the war. I missed Desert Storm, and I was trying to figure out any reason to get back there. I mean, I'm joking, but maybe I'm only half joking. Here was the play. It was taking an average of 9 days for anyone that wanted to get into Baghdad. They were stuck in Kuwait, especially the contractors. That what were those fees then, back in 2005, 2006? Easily $1,000 a day plus per diem, right? Times 9 days, times thousands and thousands and thousands of contractors going back and forth.
They're getting paid either way. Yeah, they're getting paid.
Right. So what we were doing was saving, north of $100 million in travel to the government. So, while we were talking to the government over here, we were also talking to, the Motorola's, the Halliburtons, the KBRs, saying, hey, we can save you X, per employee, and then they could do the Excel and, figure out the number that we were saving there. And we can you get off the plane, that it was either a Delta flight from Atlanta or a United flight from Dulles. You'd be on our plane, literally 30 to 45 minutes after you landed, and we were wheels up, and you were in Baghdad in less than an hour and a half after you landed in Kuwait.
Yeah, because
Instead of
they
waiting
were
9
either having to wait for military space to allow them, and they're going to be the bottom of the list for
Right.
sure, or they're going to do over ground transport, and that's but and so I mean, you were a great option. I see the business opportunity. There was definitely a market. How hard was it to get like? I mean, it seems I just think about what it takes to run an air. I mean, you got to have ground crew.
Right.
And you talked about getting things. You guys able to kind of outsource all of those normal AV?
We outsourced a lot, and in large part because it couldn't be a U.S. flag. So all the parameters around leasing a plane from one country and their crew and leasing a flag from another country, we had a lot of people that were not U.S. citizens other than the ownership group that were, in strong support. I can't remember how many employees we had at the most, but easily we were over 85. But I honestly don't remember. Yeah, but so all that stuff, and we did have a United Airlines pilot who was also a co-founder, who knew a lot about the airline industry, but not in a hazardous environment. But
Right.
And then we learned a lot every day. We learned something new, and made it work. But it just a fascinating experience taking vacation from J.P. Morgan, coming back. Oh, hey, I heard you were out of town. So the cocktail talk was usually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
When we were dealing with ultra high net worth clients.
So you are in the financial.
Right.
Was that something that?
It is because I needed to make money, and I thank you for laughing, Rob. I had all these visions. I'll go to law school. One of my roommates is doing very well as an attorney back east. He's crushing it. I'll go out and get my MBA, and then when you start looking at, and I didn't understand the whole like GI Bill thing, et cetera, et cetera. And I just got to the point, and especially when you have that conversation with the detailer, and you're like, "Hey, this is what I'd like to do," and then they say no, and at that time, as I told you, I was so selfish. I just while I'm on the phone with them, I hit the button on this thing called a fax machine. Have you guys ever heard of one of those? And I said, "Hey, check the fax machine," and then I sent him my resignation letter. Just kind of a selfish move, but so I left without anything.
No landing pad. You just
no landing pad. No.
Yeah.
So then, going through the due diligence of what my next play is without getting paid, all of a sudden you're like, okay, who's making money here and how do I start making money like they are? And I went directly into finance after running around. And the Alumni Association at the Naval Academy is it's much more sophisticated than it was back then. So I picked up the phone, called Annapolis, asked them who was in Los Angeles. They gave me a couple of names, ran around with 4 or 5 guys for a day, and then picked one and started as a financial planner guy, investments and insurance at a place called Cigna Financial Advisors. And then 450 phone calls I think it was every Tuesday. For the whole day we were on the phone, and I know other places are worse, but I was like, well, this isn't as bad as Bud's, so let's just keep smiling and dialing.
There's a lot of things you could say aren't as bad as Bud's, so there you go.
But through there, I met a really good dude that initially was at U.S. Bank, and then he went over to J.P. Morgan and brought me along, and then just it's not like it's just like we had a really good relationship. We were doing a lot of great things for some of his clients, and then then we were off to the races, and J.P. Morgan was an excellent experience for me.
Yeah. That is quite, man, you have done quite. What I like about your story is, there's so many stuff, right? In IT. Totally different. I walked right into IT. I walked out of acting. A lot of people think, oh, you're an Army. All you can do is, how to do is carry a gun. But I love stories of we talk to a lot of people on here, veteranpreneurs, right? That are veterans that start a business, whether it's
Sure.
Black Rifle Coffee Company or Alpha Elite Performance, another great sponsor, or any of the ones that we
Awesome.
listed, right? Gear for Grunts, and you just like no one is. You don't have to follow the stereotype, right? People can sit there. We know there's this mentality. The 99% in this country that have never served or know anyone that does, that thinks that all of us that have been in the military, poor, dumb, illiterate, no other choice but to no idea what it takes and quality of people. To sit there and see, guy, you went in, right? You fought, you reapplied, you finally got into the academy, went in, became, worked your way up and did the best you could. Steel slot, got through that. And then everything else you've done, and you've ran an airline, and you got into the banking, financial, has nothing to do coming up out of the water, M4, all black wetsuit, doing the SEAL thing, or working a minigun. That right? Took those same military build soft skills, task organizing, situational awareness, personal skill, conflict resolution. You took all that and applied a number of others.
Yeah, I mean it's a direct tie. Not only that, I had a head start from the standpoint I had great parents. Unfortunately my father passed in 2017, but my mom's still around and she's still, hilarious and just cares about others above herself and just like awesome role models rather. And then just getting through some of that story that shared tonight, the other tie is you just don't quit. So
right.
The rest is all cool and everything, and we can use all this stuff we learned in terms of how to brief and how to communicate, etc. But the biggest one is just, okay, hey, this is what I think I want to do. All right, how do I get there? And it's going to be a long road, but let's do it. Now, all that said, I'm very happy with where I am. I'm very much at peace. But if we look at like the metrics of success, if it's financial, I mean, all my buddies are way more successful than I am. But if we look at, and some really good dudes, like guys that have started companies that are very well known, not on the podcast. We can talk more about maybe getting some other gentlemen on the show. Also women that are just crushing it as well. But I get to work I'm so grateful as a subcontractor, so we get to earn our stripes on our past performance. And
right.
Someday we can grow up to be a prime and start bidding on these things ourselves. But I get to work with a great dude, and it's kind of a vernacular, but Paul Jenkins is a stalwart professional. Another one of those guys who started very, very small, and then in 2008 with a bunch of partners ended up buying them all out, and has grown this company where I don't know how many projects that his team, of which I'm a subset of. I want to say we're in 45 VAs right now. It's just been amazing. And the talent of his architects and engineers that are on these teams, it's just like, nice work, Paul. Not only am I grateful to have known you both militarily and socially when we met in 1984, but it's great to see guys that are good dudes in the beginning, and also gals succeed. So I've got the great fortune to be around some really, really cool people as well.
Yeah, and I want to talk about, we've been on going about an hour now, but I want to hit on what you're doing for the We Work Veterans Program. That's because you're giving back still. You didn't just get yours. You're not just a consumer. You didn't get yours and say, I did my time, I got mine, and I'm going to capitalize on it. And
you're very kind to bring that up. If you hadn't, I definitely would have. So as an entrepreneur, one of the resources available to us is a charity called Bunker Labs that a gentleman by the name of Todd Connor, former naval officer, and then picked up his MBA at Northwestern, founded. I don't know the exact date, but it was at least 8 years ago in Chicago. And now, and again, I should know, we're in about 30 cities across the country. And Bunker Labs is an organization to inspire, educate, and connect veteran entrepreneurs, guys and gals getting out of the military, and also military spouses, a very underserved community,
Right.
as well. Because his big mission was, and I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but like when the service members came back from World War II, like north of 45%, approaching 50% of World War II vets were entrepreneurs and owned small businesses. And after Iraq and Afghanistan, the number's closer to 7%. And small business is one of the major drivers of any country, and especially the United States. So Todd, and now he's got a CEO, a former Marine. Their vision is to get that number up to 25%, and they're doing it through three major platforms. One's an online program. Another one is what's called Veterans in Residence, which is a 6-month program. We meet once a week, and then there's a CEO circle, which has certain metrics around revenue that I do not qualify for yet. Working on it, and then the ambassador program is the volunteer side to help the other programs. So after having gone through Veterans in Residence twice, that in person, actually the first round was virtual. I've had the great fortune to help out others that are going through that pipeline, and while I continue to grow my own business. The other program I went through was Vet to CEO. That's another awesome program. I think they just merged with Warrior Rising, or maybe Warrior Rising acquired them. I'm not sure. But the most important personal program I went through, if I may, is the Honor Foundation. And the Honor Foundation is geared specifically to men and women that served in the special operations community. It's, I believe it's focused primarily for service members that are within 18 months, give or take, of getting out. And after befalling a major family tragedy, I reached out to those guys and said, I'm going through a transition myself. I think this would really benefit me. So I want to say April, March timeframe of 2020, they allowed me to go through the program, with a bunch of the frogmen, and CCT and PJs and shooters, operators from the teams, and also MARSOC, and it was such a inspiring, not just a gut check, but it really prepared me yet again at a different level coming in at this stage of my life, not just out of the service, but it was a great reset to then form, who it is and what I need to be doing moving forward. So hats off to the Honor Foundation, very much internally and intrinsically.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew you had that. I went veteran. Again, you're showing not only, hey, I inspirations for whatever it may be.
A couple of other programs that I'm still invested in, and when I say invested, you don't just like throw money over the fence, but it's a lot of work. But the cohorts and friends that we've developed over the last couple of years, there's an organization called the Lions Pride. A gentleman by the name of Bill Watkins runs that, and then the Government Contracting Academy with Randy Wimmer. And then lastly, I went through Medical Sales RX with the gentleman by the name of Matthew Scott at Feed, and he's been tremendous in what we're doing in the medical space. So those would also be three great guys to have on your show.
Yeah.
And I think also, since I still have the microphone, we don't do any of this ourselves, whether it was in the Army or in the Navy, no matter what we did. So I continue not only to just have not only to have coaches, but I also have like informal mentors. So even though Mike Stedman is younger than I am, he goes by Iron Mike Stedman. He's at Ironbound Boxing and Ironbound Media. He's like an accountability partner with me. Another guy, Ron Mao, who played football for West Point. Another guy, Jeff Evenson. Another guy, Paul Riley at Midstrong. So each one of these guys has like an important part in my life to help progress, whether it's the personal, the physical, the spiritual, etc., parts of my life, and continue on this journey to help others and serve others.
Good. I mean, it's a good point. We not only try to, successful leaders surround themselves not only with good, use the term lieutenant, surround yourself with good sub leaders and managers and whatever it may be, specialists too, because you surround yourself with a good team, you're going to be successful. But also surrounding yourself, like you said, with good mentors, peers, and superiors, right? Bosses, those that you continue to look for as an example. Just as important. It's not just your team that reports to you, if you would, but also the team you report to, or just your peers, to keep each other sane, balance each other. We all bring so many different experiences. Things that those probably just Griffin or with getting into the final. It may not. Sometimes it may not be for them. Probably I've had people. What I mean, tell me, they're child. Something somehow related to what I do or I've done. They go, allows us to now give them some guidance. Can't always tell them the exact answer they want. People tell me which path do I take? Let me lay it all out for you. You're gonna have to weigh, right?
And sometimes we shouldn't give them an answer at all. We should just sit there and listen.
Right. Just give them sometimes, especially if it's a child and child of a friend or something that they just want to talk to someone that is parent. And a parent will look at them as their kid and not someone that give unbiased. That's awesome. Your story. I know we didn't. You have been you've taken some big risks. You've taken complete left turns in your. How do these people making money? How can I make money? Or mortgaging a house or emptying your whatever it is. Be pretty scary.
Absolutely.
I was going to say you've been very modest with but the accomplishments that you've done. I mean, we barely even touched over getting to the NCAA finals in water polo, and how talked about being part of a team, and team sports are one of those things that we learn at an early age that we take with us later in life, right? And I'm sure water polo helped you. It helped you physically in the teams. I mean, you were probably a better swimmer than most. You see a lot of stories of people that, and we've had one on here, Remy Adelecki, who didn't even know how to swim when he got to. But
amazing,
so I'm sure.
Amazing teammate. I was never on his team, but in the teams we call each other teammates.
Right.
What an amazing guy. Again, like I don't know why I'm on this show when you got guys like Remy on.
But I'm sure those types of things, really help guide your where you're at today, and help kind of probably a lot of that helped with your modesty. I mean, it's very admirable.
You're very kind. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that.
I
think I'm sorry, Troy.
No, I mean, you're the team commander of the Navy parachute team. That's a small group. How many? What thousandth of a percent of those in the Navy? That's a huge something to hand. Something you got to earn.
With everyone gone from the Strand fighting a war, they may have handed it out. I don't know.
They're like, we need somebody. Hey, what's that dude going over to the NEX? Grab that guy.
Who's left?
Who's that guy in the Oakleys?
Who's that guy in the Oakleys getting a blimpy sub?
With a good hair. With a good hair.
With a good
that
hair.
That was all for you, Bob. No, I think I want to tell you, I'm really grateful to be on. You know, the older we get, the more we do listen, and I'm talking about just like not just my own experience, but those of my peers, and we're not talking about regrets, but I think one regret would be to have paused a few more times in my life and listened. I know we're supposed to act, you know, with a decision in special operations, but every once in a while, personally, I could have just taken that pause before I made certain decisions, and that's hard to learn, and that's hard. So if I've got an opportunity to let that out on occasion, I do that as well, and really listen to the people that supposedly work for us. I think we have to approach it that we work for them, and be the best listeners we can. And if I've done anything where I've done that the most, I've succeeded the most. The rest of it, like it looks great on paper, but I'm more enthusiastic about tonight and tomorrow and the next day and what we're all going to do to create something cool with some great people on our teams and also people we work for. That's my goal. Let's work on tonight and tomorrow. I'm not. I mean, I appreciate your accolades and the like, but we got so much more to do. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we covered a lot of things today. We hit a lot of the groups and foundations you're involved in. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure our listeners and viewers know about? Any project you're working on, any initiative you're involved in?
No, I think I would just turn it around and, like, if there's anything I can do for anyone else, you know, please reach out. You know, we're doing all right over here. We've got some good stuff going. I don't have an ask other than if there's anything I can do for anyone else, please reach out.
Awesome. Okay. Hopefully people know how to get a hold of us. Rob has been putting up the links to Debunker Lab, Navy SEAL Foundation, the Honor Foundation, and a number of things in our chat. From we've done that a lot. We have connected a lot.
Awesome.
Because this is the community that we're in, right?
I'm glad you brought up the Navy SEAL Foundation because they were the signature founding sponsor of the Honor Foundation. So I'm glad you plugged them. Big deal.
Yeah. No, and I'll be honest, right? I mess with Rob a lot because he went through a stint there for a while, which we had like the 7 guests in a row were all Navy SEALs. So I was like, we got one. I was like, oh, fine, we don't have a Navy. What? There's no Navy SEAls in the hopper tonight. Like, we got to get someone else. We got to get the special.
Yeah, now we need to bring one on we need to bring the fat old guy on who doesn't even look like a SEAL. That's what we're doing this time.
Yeah. Well, you don't look fat, and I won't call you old, but those are the best ones. Those are the quiet professionals, right? Every guy I know that's a Delta guy and former Delta guy. I tell people you would never know it when they walk past you. They're the most unassuming people in the world. And been involved with most of the history news-making events in the last 30 years. But yeah, no, I mean it's just, so it's good. It's been a while since we had a SEAL, so we've had enough time. You didn't have a book, so
you know, without being prepared for that question, I think 2 things. If anyone knows an independent physician that wants to stay independent, you know, and you know, feels the pressure of getting acquired just to you know, make their life easier, you know, we can certainly help those men and women out. And then if anyone is in the lookout for any kind of design build of basically, I mean, it's mostly larger projects, but anyone looking for some sophisticated architecture, engineering, and construction, you know, send them our way as well. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, hey, Lindsay, thank you so much for giving your time tonight. We really appreciate it, especially kind of not walking into, but we can blame Wagner for that. No, I asked you to stay on just for a few minutes after. Go ahead.
You bet. This has been an honor, gentlemen. Thank you both. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Troy.
Quick shout out to our redheaded stepbrothers and sisters, the Coast Guard, 232 years. I know we give them a lot of shit.
Is today the birthday?
Today's their birthday.
Okay, I won't talk.
232 years.
I won't talk smack about our Department of Transportation brother. There. But no, I didn't realize that was today. Yeah. So
I think they're Homeland Security now, aren't they?
Or is it Homeland Security? That's
I
what
think they are.
Yeah,
I think they are part of Homeland Security.
They went from
Yeah.
DOT to that or something. Yeah. They come back to us when it counts. When we need them, they're back in DOD. So, but hey,
Sure.
Lindsay, stay on for a few minutes after. We're going to bring you back into kind of the virtual green room. We're going to close out here. We want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight, doing the Nunn, and thank you for joining us. Be sure and tune in next Thursday here at 8:00 Eastern on stewandthenunn.com. You can always go back if you're not watching this or didn't get to catch the whole thing. Always catch the fact on all of our outlets. We're all over the place on audio and video. Being fans, supporters. That us out, and we'll be talking to you just everyone. Rob. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.